Do you remember this video? We posted it on March 13th. We spoke about Ros Altman, who was the former pensions minister, advocating to have our tax relief paid into our pension by the government on our behalf to be invested in UK infrastructure projects and the UK economy to give the country and the economy a bit of a boost. That was on May 13th. Well, on the very same day, Rachel Reeves was busy in London signing 16 of the 17 pension funds that manage the majority of the pension funds in the UK to an update to the Mansion House Accords. Now, we're not going to talk about what the Mansion House Accords are. I'll leave a link if you're interested in finding out what it is. But this update is very, very important. And this update is a commitment by 16 of the 17 pension funds. So these are funds that are managing my pension, your pension, and everybody's pension because they have the lion's share. They accumulatively have about 2.4 trillion pounds under management, signed up to a bill to have money invested in private markets here in the UK into infrastructure projects, so on and so forth. Now, on the surface of it, doesn't sound too bad because let's face it, we do need more infrastructure in the UK. Our infrastructure is crumbling. We do need investment into the economy. But how this is being packaged, I suppose, is probably the biggest talking point and one that we're going to have here in this video right now. And if you do get value from this, but please subscribe and please do share and please do like, because it will just mean that other people get to hear this conversation and kind of understand what's going on here. Now, let's just go through what they've signed up to. So the commitment that these pension funds have signed up to. So they've agreed to invest at least 10% of their default defined contribution funds into private market assets by 2030. Now, everyone who is in a workplace pension scheme right now will have a defined contribution. If you have a private pension, you're going to have a defined contribution pension. So what they're saying is at least 10% of their funds into private market assets by 2030. A minimum of 5% must be allocated to UK unlisted equities or UK-based private investments. And this is estimated to unlock about £50 billion in investment capital for UK businesses by the end of the decade. On the surface, sounds good. Doesn't sound like it should be an issue, right? Until you start digging into what private market assets essentially mean and how they sit when you think about how an investment portfolio is constructed and what goes into this investment portfolio. Now, just so that you're kind of aware, I'm just going to read off some of the companies that have signed up to this accord. Okay, so we've got Aviva, Legal and General, Phoenix Group, Nest, Smart Pension, the People's Pension, Royal London, Aegon UK, M&G, TPT Retirement Solutions, Mercer. Those are just some. The only provider that did not sign up to this apparently is Scottish Widows, and we'll talk about some of the reasons why they refused to sign up to this a little bit later on in this video. So when we talk about, okay, where's the money actually going to go, right? So this is going to go into private market assets, and these will be in sectors like clean energy, infrastructure, science and tech, life sciences, and high growth UK small, medium sized enterprises. Now, on the surface, again, it sounds pretty cool. And the aim, obviously, is to boost innovation, help businesses scale, help the economy, generally speaking. But when you think about infrastructure projects specifically, the first thing that comes to my mind, amongst many others, will be things like HS2 and the actual farcical of the management with HS2 and how it's had to be kind of like cut back. And we don't have a very good track record in the UK around our infrastructure projects. Too much red tape, too many inefficiencies. And this is the stuff that these pension funds have been told, and they have been told by the government that they need to invest in. Now, when investments are typically put together, and you think about building an investment portfolio, you wouldn't necessarily put these type of assets into an investment portfolio because in a private market, there isn't really as much transparency. This is a double-edged sword. So on one hand, what we're saying here is that we want money in our pensions to be invested for growth, which is the logical conclusion because we want as much money as we can have in our pensions for retirement purposes when we need it, right? But at the same time, we're always trying to balance the risk element to it. Now, it's okay having riskier assets, it's okay having startups in there, as long as the due diligence is done by the fund managers and they're okay to be put within the portfolio within a certain remit, that's completely fine. But what really is a bit of a concern is, well, if you've got time on the clock, you're 20, maybe 30 years old, then yes, you've got enough time. But how is this going to be disseminated in the actual investment strategy for a lot of these private pension companies or these pension fund managers that we listed a little bit earlier on? How are they going to tweak that investment strategy for people who may be in that older spectrum? I'm sure they're going to find a way, but these are all questions. But the fact that these are higher risk companies does present a risk because we do know that we're not saving enough into our pensions at the moment as a nation. And whilst this might help counter the fact that we're not saving enough because higher risk, higher reward, but what exactly is going to be the success rate of these companies? That is the big unknown. And unlike investing in traditional companies, mechanisms like you would normally do, there is really no barometer, no past history for us to be able to kind of gauge what might happen in terms of the performance and how these companies or these startups, these infrastructure projects might behave when trouble comes along. I mean, again, look at HS2. It had to be cut back because of COVID, right? And the cost just going out of control. And I think for people who have a pension fund, and if you're using any of the ones that I've literally just reeled off a little bit earlier on, you don't actually get the say. You don't get a say in this. And that I think is where, for a lot of people, it's going to become a little bit uncomfortable because whilst you are putting your trust in the pension funds to invest your money for you, the pension funds have a strategy, a system. They have a way to kind of dictate where your money goes and why it basically goes there. In this instance, the government is stepping in saying, we want you to invest at least 10% into these private market assets. And if they don't, there are lots of conversations being circulating right now around, well, what happens if the government doesn't get the level of investment that they wanted? Can the government intervene? Can the government mandate that they absolutely have to invest in a set number of projects or companies? And can the government then say, we have a preferred list of this project, this company, that then takes away some of the autonomy and control from the pension funds? These are all very legitimate questions and legitimate concerns that people have. And this really brings us back to, the risk of this. A lot of these companies, because they are going to be early startup, they're going to be highly illiquid. So it's not like you're just going to be able to sell because they won't have the liquidity there for you to be able to trade out. And again, that is going to be a management issue for these pension funds. You're putting money into something that doesn't have a lot of liquidity. So the allocation that you allocate to this project has to be held for a period of time. And what happens if things don't go right? How do you get out of that position if you wanted to? Better yet, if the infrastructure projects fail, if a certain number of companies that receive funds from these pension companies fail, are there any guarantees? Probably not. So this is one of those situations where it's like, what are we doing right now? Because your private pension should be used to invest in, yes, the markets for your personal use, but free from any kind of mandated investment strategy from the government. And that feels like what we're heading towards now with this. We're heading towards 16 of the largest pension providers in the UK who control and manage a majority, 95% of all money held in pensions overall being dictated to by the government to invest in certain projects and certain private market assets. The government shouldn't have that ability to dictate how this money is invested because it's your money, it's my money, it's not the government's money. And yes, we do need to invest to boost the UK economy, but like this, I'm not sure. You let me know what you think in the comment section down below because I'm not too sure how I feel about this one. A lot of people, if you're using SIPs right now, will probably be quite happy that you're using SIPs because within a SIP, you get to have a little bit more autonomy over where the money's invested and what assets you invest in. But SIPs aren't necessarily for everyone. So again, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? I think it's interesting. I can see negatives to it. I can see the positive that if things do work out and these companies grow, then yes, higher returns. But if they weren't necessarily assets that the fund managers who have years of experience doing this would pick without this mandate, why are they there at all? That's the question. Why are they there at all? Catch you in the next one.